Have you ever wondered how everything you see, everything you've ever known, and even the very stars above us, might one day cease to exist? Imagine looking up at the night sky, filled with billions of shining stars, galaxies stretching out farther than your eyes can comprehend, and then realizing that one day, not a single one of them will remain. That the universe itself, the grandest stage of all, will eventually reach its final curtain call. Welcome to World's Echoes, where we dive deep into the mysteries of existence and the secrets of our cosmos. If you love exploring the strange, the beautiful, and the unimaginable, don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey. Because today, we're asking one of the most profound questions ever conceived: how will the universe end? It's a question that feels almost impossible to hold in your mind. We're used to endings, of stories, of lives, of civilizations, but the universe? How do you imagine the ending of everything? Scientists have wrestled with this question for centuries, and though we still don't know for certain, we do have theories. Each of them is haunting in its own way, painting a picture of what could be our ultimate fate. And as we move through them, I want you to not just think of abstract physics or distant numbers, but to picture yourself, our world, our galaxy, caught inside these grand scenarios. Because in the end, we're not just talking about the stars. We're talking about the end of home. To understand where we're going, let's take a moment to remind ourselves of where we are. The universe is vast beyond comprehension. It's around 13.8 billion years old, born from the Big Bang, an explosion not of matter flying into empty space, but of space itself expanding, carrying with it the seeds of galaxies, stars, planets, and eventually us. That expansion is still happening right now. Every second, every minute, the fabric of the universe stretches. Galaxies drift farther apart. The night sky we see is already outdated, a fossil of the universe's younger days. And so, if everything has an origin, doesn't it also have an ending? That's what these theories attempt to answer. The first possibility is one that sounds deceptively peaceful, almost serene, until you really think about what it means. It's called the heat death. Imagine the universe continuing to expand, forever. Galaxies rush away from each other at faster and faster speeds, until their light no longer reaches us. The stars, one by one, burn through their fuel and fade into black dwarfs, dead husks, cold and lifeless. Black holes, once terrifying monsters of gravity, slowly evaporate into nothing through Hawking radiation. Until one day, the universe is a silent, endless ocean of darkness. No light. No warmth. No stars. Nothing. This is the heat death, the point where the universe has stretched so far and cooled so much that it can no longer sustain any process that we would call life. It almost feels like the universe falling asleep forever, but in truth, it's more like a suffocation. Entropy, the law that disorder always increases, wins in the end. Energy spreads so thin that nothing new can ever form. A universe that once burst with galaxies and stars becomes a frozen graveyard. It's hard to imagine a more lonely ending, one where even the concept of time seems meaningless, because nothing changes anymore. The clock ticks, but there's no one left to hear it. But there's another theory, and this one is far more violent. Instead of drifting quietly into the night, what if the expansion of the universe doesn't just continue, but accelerates until it rips everything apart? This is known as the Big Rip. Right now, astronomers know that the universe is not only expanding but accelerating. Something mysterious, which we call dark energy, is driving galaxies apart faster and faster. We don't fully understand what dark energy is. It's one of the biggest mysteries in physics, but if its strength continues to grow, then one day, its pull could overwhelm everything. First, galaxies would be torn apart. Then solar systems. Then planets. Then even atoms themselves, ripped open as the very fabric of space stretches too violently to hold them together. Imagine being alive in such a universe, watching the sky as galaxies streak away, stars pulled apart like cotton in the wind, and finally, the very matter of your own body unravels. A cosmos torn limb from limb. That is the Big Rip. Compared to the cold silence of heat death, the Big Rip feels apocalyptic, almost biblical in its destruction. Yet both are born from the same question: what will dark energy do? Is it steady, unchanging, pushing galaxies apart at the same rate forever? Or does it grow stronger with time? The answer decides whether we fade into silence or shatter violently apart. But there's still another possibility, one that almost flips the story upside down. What if expansion doesn't last forever? What if, instead, the universe eventually slows, stops, and then begins to contract? This is the theory of the Big Crunch. Picture the universe as a great balloon, expanding outward. For billions of years, galaxies rush away from each other. But what if gravity eventually wins? What if the pull of matter, all the galaxies, all the dark matter, is strong enough to slow the expansion and then reverse it? Slowly, the galaxies would begin to draw closer again. Stars and planets collide. Black holes merge into larger and larger beasts. Until finally, everything collapses inward into a single point, as if rewinding back to the beginning, the mirror image of the Big Bang. Some even wonder, could such a collapse trigger another Big Bang, creating a cycle? A universe that lives, dies, and is reborn endlessly? If that's true, then our cosmos might not be the first, or the last. It might be just one heartbeat in an eternal rhythm of expansion and collapse. Each of these theories feels like science fiction, and yet they're rooted in real physics. Heat death, Big Rip, Big Crunch, each one is a map drawn from the limited clues we have about dark energy, dark matter, and the fate of expansion. And they're only the beginning. Because there are even stranger possibilities, ones that stretch the imagination to its limits. Before we dive into those, though, I want to pause for just a second. We've been talking about vast timescales, billions and trillions of years. Endings so distant that they make the human story feel like the blink of an eye. But here's the thing, when you imagine these endings, which one feels more haunting to you? The slow fade into darkness? The violent tearing apart of everything? Or the crushing return into a cosmic singularity? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments which vision of the end resonates most with you, and why. Now, let's imagine another ending, one that's even stranger. The Big Bounce. Unlike the Big Crunch, which suggests collapse and maybe a new beginning, the Big Bounce proposes that the universe has always been cycling. Expanding, collapsing, bouncing back, again and again, with no true beginning or final end. If that's the case, then the Big Bang wasn't a first moment, but just the latest rebound in an eternal series of cosmic breaths. The thought is dizzying, isn't it? That even the end isn't really the end, just part of a cycle so ancient we can't even trace its start. But even beyond that, there's a darker, more unsettling possibility. Something physicists call vacuum decay. And if the heat death felt lonely, if the Big Rip felt violent, if the Big Crunch felt cyclical, then this one feels terrifying in its suddenness. Because in vacuum decay, the universe doesn't slowly fade or collapse. It pops. This idea comes from quantum physics, and it has to do with the fabric of reality itself. Imagine that the universe we live in is balanced in what scientists call a false vacuum. It's stable, but only temporarily. At any moment, without warning, a bubble of true vacuum could form an area of space where the laws of physics shift to a lower, more stable state. That bubble would then expand at the speed of light, consuming everything in its path. No warning. No escape. One instant, life as we know it. The next, nothing. And the scariest part? If vacuum decay is possible, it could happen right now, or billions of years from now. We'd never see it coming. The universe ending not with a whimper, not with a bang, but with an invisible wave rewriting existence itself. It's the kind of theory that sounds like pure science fiction, and yet, it emerges from real equations about quantum fields. A chilling reminder that reality is far stranger and far more fragile than it looks. Vacuum decay is one of those ideas that sounds like a nightmare you might have after watching too many science documentaries late at night. The sheer unpredictability of it is what makes it so haunting. Unlike the heat death, which plays out over unimaginable timescales, or the Big Rip, which gives us warning signs as galaxies fly apart, vacuum decay offers no such courtesy. If the universe truly is sitting on a precarious quantum balance, then the tiniest fluctuation could trigger it. One moment, stars shine, planets orbit, life evolves, and the next, a bubble of true vacuum expands at the speed of light, rewriting the rules of physics, erasing everything we know. It's the most existentially terrifying scenario imaginable, not because it's the most likely, but because it's instantaneous. If it ever happens, we wouldn't even know. There would be no time to feel pain, no time to understand. Just nothing. It makes you realize that the security we feel about the permanence of the universe is fragile, built on assumptions that might not hold forever. When physicists first proposed this, many dismissed it as too wild to be taken seriously. But the more we understand about the Higgs field, the invisible field that gives particles their mass, the more vacuum decay lingers as a shadow possibility. If the Higgs boson's mass is slightly different than expected, it might mean we live in this false vacuum, destined one day to collapse into something more stable. It's humbling to imagine. Here we are, worrying about our small daily problems, while the entire universe itself might be balanced on a knife's edge. Perhaps that's the true gift of thinking about the end. It forces us to realize just how fragile and precious every moment of existence really is. But let's move away from terrifying sudden endings and look at another strange possibility. One that's less violent, but perhaps even harder to wrap your mind around. It's called the Big Freeze, or more precisely, the concept of eternal expansion. This is closely related to heat death, but let's picture it more vividly. Imagine the universe expanding forever, galaxies drifting so far apart that their light can never reach one another. From the perspective of any observer in the far future, the universe becomes emptier and emptier. One by one, stars exhaust their fuel. Supernovas fade into black dwarfs. Black holes swallow whatever remains, and then, over trillions of years, even they evaporate. Now imagine being alive in that time. What would the night sky look like to a distant civilization, billions or trillions of years from now? The stars they see would vanish, until their sky was pitch black. No Milky Way. No galaxies. Just silence. Entire civilizations, if they still exist, would have no way of knowing there ever were other galaxies at all, because the light would never reach them. It's almost cruel, the universe erasing its own history, leaving future beings trapped in darkness, unaware of the grandeur that once was. This is where science intersects with something deeply emotional. Because when we talk about the end, it's not just physics. It's about memory. The stars are like a cosmic record, a diary written in light. If the Big Freeze really is our fate, then the universe won't just die. It will forget. That, perhaps, is the saddest ending of all. But human beings have always had a fascination with cycles. Life and death, night and day, the changing of seasons, we look for rhythms in everything. And so naturally, some theories of the universe's fate also involve cycles. The Big Bounce, which I touched on earlier, takes this to the extreme. Instead of a single universe with a beginning and an end, imagine infinite cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. The universe expands, collapses, and bounces back again in a never-ending loop. It's a comforting thought in some ways. If true, it means death is never final. The cosmos is eternal, always renewing itself. But think about what that really means. If the cycle is truly infinite, then everything that has ever existed could, in theory, exist again. Maybe not you exactly as you are now, but some version of you. Some version of Earth. Some version of everything. It's dizzying to imagine that the universe might be rehearsing itself endlessly across cycles that stretch forever into the past and the future. And yet, not everyone finds this comforting. Because what if the cycle is endless repetition? What if the same histories, the same joys and tragedies, replay again and again, without change? Would that still feel like hope, or would it feel like being trapped? The Big Bounce is beautiful because it offers continuity, but it also unsettles us, because it challenges the very idea of uniqueness. Are we living a story that has played out an infinite number of times before, and will play out again, endlessly? These are the kinds of questions that make cosmology so haunting. It's not just about stars and galaxies. It's about meaning. About whether existence is singular, fragile, and fleeting, or eternal, repeating, and unshakable. Now, let's take a step back. We've covered several major theories: heat death, Big Rip, Big Crunch, Big Bounce, vacuum decay, Big Freeze. Each offers its own haunting image of the end. But here's something even more unsettling: what if none of these are correct? What if the universe's fate is something we can't yet even imagine, because we still don't understand its fundamental nature? Consider dark matter and dark energy. Together, they make up about 95% of the universe. 95%. And yet, we don't know what they are. We only infer their existence from how galaxies move and how the universe expands. Imagine trying to predict the fate of a machine when you don't even know what most of its parts are. That's the challenge scientists face. Maybe dark energy isn't constant. Maybe it changes over time in ways we can't yet see. Maybe dark matter interacts in ways we haven't discovered. If that's true, then the future might hold surprises far stranger than any theory we've imagined so far. Some scientists even speculate about scenarios beyond our comprehension. What if the universe is just one bubble in a larger multiverse? If so, then our universe's end might not be the end at all, just the closing of one bubble among countless others. Picture an endless foam of universes, each born, living, and dying independently. The death of ours might go completely unnoticed in the grand multiverse sea. Or perhaps bubbles collide, reshaping each other in ways we can't imagine. The thought is almost unbearable, isn't it? That our entire universe, everything we know, might be no more significant in the larger reality than a single raindrop in a storm. This is where awe takes over. Because when you realize how little we know, how fragile our understanding really is, you can't help but feel both small and deeply connected. We live on a tiny planet orbiting an average star in a quiet corner of a galaxy that's one among trillions. And yet, from this tiny place, we dare to imagine the fate of the entire cosmos. That act itself is extraordinary. It's what makes us human. So as we move deeper into this journey through the universe's possible endings, I want you to hold on to that thought. That the very act of asking these questions is a miracle in itself. We are creatures of stardust, made by the universe, and now we are gazing back at it, trying to imagine its final chapter. Whether that ending is silence, destruction, rebirth, or something stranger, the story we're part of is already astonishing beyond words. The more we learn about the universe, the more it feels like we're only scratching the surface. For centuries, humans believed the Earth was the center of everything. Then we discovered the Sun was the center of our solar system. Later, we realized our Sun was just one among billions in the Milky Way. Then came the shock that our galaxy itself was just one among trillions scattered across the cosmos. And now, physics whispers that even the universe itself might not be the whole story, that it could be one bubble among many, floating in a vast multiverse. If that's true, then the end of our universe might not be final at all. Imagine an infinite ocean of universes, each with different laws of physics, different histories, different possibilities. Some expand forever, some collapse quickly, some may never even form stars. Ours, with its galaxies and planets and life, is just one bubble in this cosmic foam. When our bubble ends, whether through heat death, rip, or crunch, it's only the closing of one story in an infinite library. But there's something both comforting and unsettling in that idea. Comforting, because it suggests existence continues, in some form, even after our universe fades. Unsettling, because it makes our entire reality feel less unique, less special. What if there are countless other versions of us, living in universes where the laws of nature are slightly different? What if the very end we fear has already happened, in other universes, countless times before? The multiverse doesn't just challenge our sense of scale, it challenges our sense of meaning. And yet, meaning is what we search for. When we talk about the end of the universe, what we're really talking about is the end of memory, the end of stories, the end of life. Human beings evolved on a small planet, under a warm sun, with nights filled with stars. Our ancestors looked up and made myths to explain the sky. They saw gods and monsters in the constellations, stories of creation and destruction. We are wired to seek patterns, to ask why. And so even now, armed with the mathematics of cosmology and the physics of black holes, we're still asking the same question our ancestors once asked by firelight: how will it all end? Let's return for a moment to one of the most chilling scenarios, heat death. When entropy has reached its maximum, when energy is so evenly spread that nothing new can form, when time itself becomes meaningless. Imagine a universe trillions of years old. Every star has died. Every galaxy has gone dark. Even black holes, those eternal beasts of gravity, have evaporated into faint whispers of radiation. What's left is a thin, cold mist of particles drifting endlessly in darkness. If consciousness still exists anywhere at that point, it would be like living in a dreamless void, surrounded by silence so deep it presses against you. In some ways, heat death is worse than sudden annihilation. At least the Big Rip ends with violence, the Big Crunch ends with collapse, and vacuum decay ends instantly. But heat death stretches on forever. A frozen eternity. No rebirth, no escape, just endless emptiness. A universe that doesn't end in fire or fury, but in boredom. For some philosophers, this is the most terrifying possibility, because it represents not just the end of life, but the end of meaning. If nothing ever happens again, then existence becomes indistinguishable from non-existence. And yet, there are scientists who wonder if even heat death might not be the final word. What if fluctuations in that cold, empty universe could one day spark new beginnings? Some theorists propose that even in the quiet void, random quantum fluctuations could eventually create new bubbles of reality, tiny universes within the nothingness. In that sense, heat death might not be an ending, but a transition. The death of one universe seeding the birth of another. It's speculation, yes, but it shows just how hard it is for the human mind to accept the idea of a true ending. We always imagine a continuation, a sequel, a cycle. Now, let's turn back to the Big Rip, because in many ways, it feels the most dramatic. To picture it, imagine the galaxies we see in the night sky today. The Andromeda Galaxy, drifting closer to us, due to collide with the Milky Way billions of years from now. In most scenarios, that dance of galaxies would be the grand event of our cosmic future. But in a Rip universe, we might never see it happen. Instead, galaxies would accelerate away from each other so quickly that Andromeda would vanish from view, its light stretched beyond detectability. Then, as dark energy grows stronger, the Milky Way itself would be torn apart. Stars ripped from their orbits. Planets flung into the void. Eventually, even atoms would be shredded. The very fabric of matter undone by the relentless force of expansion. It's a universe that doesn't just die, it disintegrates. Nothing remains. No stars, no particles, no atoms. Just the raw, torn fabric of space itself. It's hard to imagine anything more apocalyptic, and yet, some cosmologists consider it plausible, depending on how dark energy behaves. That's the unnerving part. The fate of the universe comes down to a substance we barely understand, a force we can't yet explain. Dark energy is the great wildcard. If it remains constant, heat death or big freeze are likely. If it grows stronger, the Big Rip becomes possible. If it changes in other ways, who knows what scenarios might unfold? And then, there's the Big Crunch. If expansion reverses, everything collapses inward. At first, the change would be subtle. Galaxies that were drifting apart would begin slowing. Then, over billions of years, they'd start to move closer. Imagine the night sky filling with more and more galaxies as the cosmos contracts. Eventually, the heat would rise as matter packed tighter together. Stars would collide. Black holes would merge. Radiation would intensify. The universe would grow hotter and denser, until everything collapsed into a singularity. Some scientists suggest this could spark another Big Bang, creating a new universe in the ashes of the old. It's a poetic ending, isn't it? Fire, destruction, and then renewal. Like a phoenix, the cosmos dies to give birth to itself again. But it also raises uncomfortable questions. If universes are reborn from their own destruction, what does that say about time? Is time itself cyclical? Are we living in a universe that has died and been reborn countless times before? And if so, does that mean everything happening now has already happened before, in previous cycles? Every star, every planet, every life, repeating endlessly? This idea connects strangely with human experience. We see cycles everywhere, seasons, birth and death, civilizations rising and falling. Perhaps it's no surprise we imagine the universe itself in cycles too. It feels natural, even comforting. But also haunting. Because if everything repeats, then where does meaning lie? If the universe has lived infinite versions of itself, is our story still unique? This is the point where cosmology becomes less about physics and more about philosophy. The fate of the universe isn't just about how matter moves or how galaxies stretch. It's about what it means to exist at all. And that's why these theories resonate so deeply. They're not just scientific predictions. They're mirrors, reflecting our fears, our hopes, our search for meaning. Take vacuum decay again. Its horror lies not just in the physics, but in the idea of fragility. That everything we know could vanish in an instant. It forces us to confront the truth: we have no control. The universe doesn't need our permission to end. That's terrifying, but it also brings a strange kind of clarity. If the universe can vanish without warning, doesn't that make every moment we have more precious? Every laugh, every sunrise, every small act of kindness, it all matters because it exists now, in this fleeting bubble of stability. Or think about the heat death. Its horror lies in loneliness, in eternity without change. But it also inspires awe. Because before that final silence, there will have been trillions of years of stars, galaxies, and life. The universe lived. It burned bright for billions of years. And we are part of that flame, here and now. The Big Crunch, the Big Bounce, the multiverse, they all inspire wonder, because they suggest renewal, continuity, a universe that never truly dies. They may not be likely, but they're a reminder of the creativity of existence. Of how even endings can become beginnings. As we edge closer to our final, think about what all of these theories have in common. Whether it's freezing silence, fiery collapse, sudden annihilation, or endless cycles, they all tell us the same thing: the universe is not static. It's a story with motion, change, and destiny. And in that story, we are a chapter. A small one, yes. But no less meaningful. Because to even ask these questions, to even imagine the end of the cosmos, is extraordinary. We are stardust that became conscious, staring back at the stars, daring to ask, how will this all end? As we stand here, billions of years away from any of these endings, we can't help but feel the weight of the question: what does it all mean? What do these theories really tell us about the universe, about ourselves? At first glance, they're simply predictions about physics and time. But when you really listen to them, when you imagine what they mean for the future of existence, you realize they're also deeply human stories. They're about hope, fear, fragility, resilience, and the search for meaning in a cosmos that doesn't offer easy answers. Think again of the heat death. On the surface, it's the triumph of entropy, the slow fading of everything into darkness. But for us, it also carries a whisper: nothing lasts forever. Empires crumble, stars burn out, even universes die. And yet, there's beauty in that fragility. Because it means that right now, in this rare moment when the stars are still shining and galaxies still blaze with light, we are alive. We are conscious. We get to see the cosmos while it is still awake. That, in itself, is miraculous. Now picture the Big Rip. The universe torn apart piece by piece, galaxies, stars, planets, atoms, everything unstitched by runaway expansion. It's terrifying, yes, but it also speaks to something we instinctively understand: that nothing is truly permanent. Structures collapse. Bonds break. But even in destruction, there is awe. To imagine the raw power of dark energy ripping through reality is to witness the universe's true might. It humbles us. Reminds us of our smallness. And yet, it also sparks gratitude for the stability we do have, for the time we are given before the storm. And then there's the Big Crunch. A universe folding back in on itself, returning to the singularity from which it came. For some, it's terrifying: a fiery collapse, a crushing end. For others, it's hopeful. Because it suggests rebirth. That even after endings, there can be beginnings. Maybe this has happened before, countless times. Maybe it will happen again. And if so, then perhaps nothing is ever truly lost. Every end contains the seed of a new dawn. The Big Bounce takes this further: an eternal rhythm of universes expanding and contracting, like a heartbeat that never stops. The thought is dizzying, but also comforting. Because it means existence itself never dies. It just transforms. And while we may never know for certain, the idea that we are part of an infinite cycle connects us to something larger than ourselves, larger than any single universe. Vacuum decay, meanwhile, is the most frightening of them all. Sudden. Merciless. Absolute. It strips away the illusion of control and safety. But even this theory contains something worth holding on to. It reminds us that the universe is stranger and more fragile than we imagine. And in that fragility, we find urgency. An urgency to cherish what we have, because tomorrow is never promised. The end, however it comes, makes the present moment shine brighter. But beyond the theories, beyond the physics and the mathematics, there's a deeper truth here. Talking about the end of the universe forces us to confront the most human of questions. What is the meaning of our story? If everything ends, if galaxies vanish, if atoms unravel, if memory itself is erased, what was it all for? Some might say it means nothing. That the universe doesn't care. That our stories, our lives, our dreams, vanish into the void like sparks in the dark. But maybe the point isn't what the universe means. Maybe the point is what we mean. That for a brief moment, in a small corner of space, the universe produced beings who could love, wonder, dream, and ask questions. Beings who could look up at the night sky and imagine its end. That is extraordinary. That is meaning. Because in the face of cosmic endings, what matters most isn't the fate of stars or galaxies. It's the connections we make. The stories we tell. The kindness we show. The dreams we dare to chase. Those are the things that give existence weight. And even if one day the stars go dark, those moments remain real. They happened. They mattered. Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson of the universe's end, not to despair, but to live more fully. To realize how rare and precious it is to exist in a universe still alive with light. To marvel at the stars while they are still here. To remember that we are stardust, given the gift of consciousness, able to witness the cosmos. Out of infinite possibility, here we are, together, in this moment. That is not nothing. That is everything. And so, how will the universe end? Will it freeze in silence, rip apart in chaos, collapse in fire, bounce back in rebirth, or vanish in an instant? We don't know. We may never know. But perhaps that's the beauty of it. The mystery keeps us looking up, keeps us searching, keeps us humble. The universe's final chapter remains unwritten. And in that uncertainty, we find wonder. As this journey comes to a close, I want to leave you with one final thought. Endings, no matter how distant or inevitable, are not what define us. What defines us is how we live before the ending comes. The stars will burn for billions of years more. The galaxies will dance their slow ballet. And we, in our brief moment, get to witness it all. That is our privilege. That is our miracle. So tonight, when you look up at the night sky, don't just see stars. See stories. See history. See the fragile, burning miracle of existence. And remember, no matter how the universe ends, right now, it is alive. And so are we. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time, space, and possibility. If you felt awe, curiosity, or even a little shiver of wonder along the way, then I invite you to keep exploring with us. Like this video, share it with those who love the mysteries of existence, and subscribe to World's Echoes. Together, we'll keep asking the questions that make us human. Because in the end, the universe will write its own final chapter. But until then, we'll keep listening to its echoes.